Hello guys, David Vos here. Oh buddy, it's another beautiful day. Oh, is it a beautiful day here in Alabama on the Tennessee-Georgia border. Oh man, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Friends, look, you see that picture there? Well, I just did a video on this. Now don't worry, we're not going to do another video on this. You know, that was a long video, but oh, was it packed full of beautiful country. But the most important thing is we have now got proof that these areas down here in the Mississippi, what do they call it? The Mississippi Valley. I don't know what that means, but the whole Alabama, Mississippi, all the way up the Mississippi, going up to Wisconsin or whatever, Illinois, all along that river. And basically, the whole United States was a vast civilization. And this goes back pre-Christ, pre-BC time. Anyway, we talked about that yesterday. Here is what I'm going to tell you today. Please, friends, stay tuned. This is the culmination of everything we've been doing for the last 10 years. We got the answer. Not that we haven't been telling you the answer in many different and sundry ways, but this is going to make a difference in your life if you listen to this. This is going to make you smile. This is going to give you a little skip in your step. I'm telling you, friends, you got to watch this, and it will not be boring. Please don't just click off, go another video about some rocks. Friends, okay, let me tell you. So, remember, well, first of all, what is it we're trying to get at? The truth, right? And the truth isn't going to be a formula, a scientific formula. If you go down in your basement or go get some very important scientists, or maybe NASA will use it and make the world a lovely place. No, 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 no. I want to know, and you want to know what I can do, what you can do today, right now, to see God. Well, let's say to see the divine, because I don't like the word God. But what we want to know is, what is salvation? Is it really such a thing? Is there a Jesus? Is there a life after this? What's going on in the world today? Why is it all going on? These are some of the many questions that we have. Well, all of those questions sound a little bit like, first of all, whenever you think about those questions, you're kind of trained to think, well, now, that's silly. That's religion. And we did away with that a long time ago when we came to America, David. We're scientists now. Okay, what were the ancient ones doing? Were they any better off than we are? Because we're worshiping a religion too. It's called government. We're getting down on our knees at the altar of secularism, and we're believing these scientists, and they're telling us lies. So we need to know the truth. So we saw this whole complex in this temple complex thing yesterday. If you remember, at the basically right at the end of the video, by synchronicity, right, by some holy coincidence, by divine intervention, I'm going back to the truck, the last couple minutes of the video, and I noticed there on the ground a very important thing. Remember, they say there are no coincidences. Well, that's not necessarily true, because what does the word coincidence mean? An incident which coincides with some other incidents. But, so that's real, but what does it mean? It means that that is connected to whatever else you saw that reminded you of it. It was connected. Let me give you an example. I was driving down the road yesterday. By the way, it was yesterday. Same day I went and saw this whole complex of temple rocks and all this stuff. And as I was driving to that area, I noticed that this truck was coming, and it was like a big dump truck or some kind of big truck. And I wasn't paying too much attention, except that I noticed that there was some sort of dust, white dust flying off the truck. And that white dust, it gave me the impression it was like sand, but very fine granulated sand, and it just was blowing in the wind out of his truck, and it covered my truck. Just a faint little film. You could kind of hear it going, you know. And I thought, what in the world is that guy got in his truck. And just as I was thinking, what was that just got all over my vehicle and how rude, I noticed off to my right was this big area with fenced off area, and it was like, not sure what it was, but it might have been like a cement factory or whatever, how they, make that stuff, the lime and the sand and all the stuff that they do there. And there was these big piles of this white sand, or dust, or whatever it was. And I thought, well, what a coincidence. I just got pelted with white dust. And half mile down the road, there was this big pile of white dust. That's a coincidence. And then it hit me. I know a lot of you are thinking, what? That's not a coincidence. There's a reason for that. Well, yeah, my mind was thinking real quickly in little snippets. And the next thought was just like what you said. It was like, well, of course that's not a coincidence, Dave. There it is. That's where the truck came from. The reason I met that truck with all the white dust is because he was coming out from this area and I'm going by this area. This is not coincidence. But then it hit me. That's how all coincidences are. When you see something, whatever it is, it grabs your attention. And then a few minutes or a day later, you see the same thing or several things happening that remind you of that. And you think, what a coincidence. You see, they've got us to think a certain way so that we don't understand reality anymore. Because back in the day, we would have known, but we've been brainwashed. We would have known what these things like coincidence, how our mind works, how to deduce, and figure and contemplate things. And we would have understood that coincidences are simply things that are connected. There are reasons for each of these things that remind us of other things. They're connected in some way. So when you see a coincidence and you go down the road and somebody else is doing and thinking the same thing, there's a connection. Maybe something was on television, or there's something in the air, or something's going on. There's a more important source to this thought. The thought is just sometimes maybe warning you, sometimes it could be alerting you to something more important. But when you have these coincidences, look for the source. There will be some piece of information you're probably looking for, and you can follow it. So today, or yesterday, when I saw this mushroom, I picked it up and I thought, well, isn't that interesting? Because, I'm very interested in these, they call them fly agaric, amanita mushrooms. And I've done research and I know that they're highly hallucinogenic, I should say. And that they're placed in the movies, like Alice in Wonderland, the fairies are always flying around with this amanita fly agaric red mushroom with the little white dots. And it's a symbol because these movies are like fairies and going down the rabbit hole like Alice in Wonderland and things like this. And it may seem like a fantasy, but what it's trying to tell you is that there is a place that one can go in your mind that is like a fairyland. You'll meet a fairy who'll give you all your wishes. But there will be tests along the way. You might see the Cheshire cat. You might find things that don't make sense in this world. Like rabbits having a cup of tea, right? There might be some strange things, time moving backwards or something like that. But in the end, well, one of the things you'll learn is that the Queen of Hearts, is a very wicked person. This world that we live in, the king and the queen and the government, they're evil and they're trying to kill you. But there is a way to realize it's not real. This is an illusion. And we've got to find a way out of the illusion. Now, what were these ancient temples for? We saw yesterday that this great temple was oriented so that the door of the temple faced a certain direction, probably a spring direction, where certain the sun rose in the month of March 21st, right, where the spring equinox came, and it was about the seasons and planting, and people think, well, they were just obsessed with seasons and planting. Why were they obsessed with the stars? Is there no other way you can determine what time of year it is? But they had the stars, and all their buildings were created and designed in alignment with the stars, and they wanted to know when spring was coming. What were this whole community that we saw yesterday? What were all the ancient communities? They were religious places. That's why they all had a temple. And the temple was to find a way to prepare the people for this maze that we're going through, to succeed in this classroom, and to get a good grade, pass, and go on to the next awakening. It was to awaken the souls of men. And how did they do it? Well, all your mythologies explain it, but we've been lied to about the meaning of the mysteries. The mysteries that Paul talked about, notice how I understand the mysteries, Paul would say, and the mystery of godliness and the mystery of iniquity and all these things that we've learned here in the last 10 years we've been talking. Friends, wait till you find out what this is all really about. It's about awakening. It's about the mind. All right, let me show you this little clip yesterday where I find the mushroom, and then I'm going to show you something that'll blow your mind.
Hey, look. There's one of those psychedelic mushrooms from Alice in Wonderland.
So, as I always do, I think about not just the facts, but how I'm feeling, and I listen to the Lord, and I ask the Lord to explain what is the meaning of all of this. And as I was thinking about this, I got my phone and turned it on and started to scroll for just about 2 seconds, and this popped up. I want to show you this because you're not going to even... Now, I'm sure you heard some of this before. I have heard a lot of this, and I've investigated it, and I went down that rabbit hole, and I knew that I was on the right path. But then you get to a place where you start getting off into other things, and you start investigating other parts of the puzzle. It takes sometimes years to look at all the pieces and realize just how important they all are, because you're talking about one part of the puzzle, then you talk about another part, and then maybe down the road you get back and you look at it all together and you see the whole picture. Friends, we're about to take a look at the whole picture today. Religion, everlasting life, happiness, health, everything. Temples, history, God, all of it. Here is the meaning of this whole idea of temples, priesthoods, spirituality, science, everything. Here's the meaning. Watch this. Santa Claus went to the North Pole where the Aurora Borealis is and went right in through the wormhole. Friends, this puts everything together. All the stuff we've been talking about. The wormhole, NASA, how to get to other realms. But see, this definitely then has a lot to do with that whole temple and the door or the gate of that temple as they described, like we saw yesterday on the signs. The government was telling us that they oriented that temple facing towards the sun or something, or some seasonal directions, and they had festivals and ceremonies. But why? What would prompt the entire world and every nation to have these temples oriented towards the seasonal, spring equinox and the stars and all of this? Why? What are they trying to do? They're trying to gain salvation. They're trying to be happy. People want to be free. And they knew in ancient times that this world was an illusion, and we needed to free ourselves. See, that's why, medicine is supposed to make you well. But what is it to be well? It's to be really well. Mankind is not well at all right now. We're insane. We're in pain. And those things rhyme, probably for a reason. Coincidence, anyone? Listen, friends. The reason that Santa Claus goes through the wormhole is because that's at the North Pole. And that is the top of the hole. And you have one on your head on the top. That's where, remember at Pentecost, they had the cloven tongues of fire, or split in twain, the twin flame, the igniting of both of these energies, or the lotus flower on the top of Buddha's head, right? Because he was born from the lotus flower. So you're born from the lotus flower. That's the southern wormhole where we come in, and we go out through the top into another dimension, to the next class. And every planet has the North and the South Pole, the two wormholes. That's how we go from one reality to another. These things we call globes are holograms of consciousness. And we go from one to the other by transforming our consciousness. And that can only be done with some proper teaching, through harmonious living, through eating the natural herbs that grow, because the angels have already provided the pathway. So the ancient ones had temples where people could go. They were also like hospitals. In other words, they were places to get rest. They were places to go home. They were places to dwell. But it wasn't a materialistic living. They didn't care about luxury. They cared about peace, harmony, and health, and getting back to the Father and the Divine Mother. And they understood this world was an illusion, and that we needed to change our consciousness. And the rites and the ceremonies that mankind have always had has always been these rites that would give us this awakening. It's exactly the same thing we find in the New Testament. We've got Jesus anointing people. We've got the priests anointing on the top of their head with this oil that you find out in the Bible was made from cannabis. So the Sumerian tablets talk about cannabis being the tree of life. And remember, the tree of life is going to be at the top of your head. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is going to grow from the bottom, from the roots. And it's going to go back into the depths of the ground in the past and bring, instinctual nature and memories. But where we're going, that's going to help us to grow and make branches and go and reach under the sky. But we've got to be part of the vine to receive the life-giving source of Christ. So I'm going to show you now a few pictures, and I want to read a little article about this. Friends, take a look at this. I really recommend that you watch this whole video and then take it to prayer. So let me show you this. All right, here's an interesting article on this fly agaric, and I have to read you this. This is going to literally change your mind about a lot of things. But notice that this is an article from the USDA, U.S. Forest Service. Isn't that interesting? It says, now, the reason that's interesting is because it's the government, right? And so they will tell you things, but then they don't tell you. Like yesterday, we were looking at the signs, and it kept mentioning the mills and the Civil War and stuff. But if you read it carefully, it never said that these big rocks and all this whole temple complex that we were looking at yesterday, it never said that was from the 1860s. But they led your mind to believe that it was, that the rocks that you see were just something that was built by the Union Army in the Civil War or something. But they never said that, but they made you to believe that because they don't want people to really start waking up to the fact this was a 2,000-year-old temple. That when, Coronado came over here, they wiped out the civilization that was here. But, so it's like they're not allowed to lie, but they can obfuscate and hide the truth. So this is going, you're always told, remember, never eat these. These are poison. Be careful when you eat mushrooms. They might be poison. Do you know that there's only one family of poisonous mushrooms in the world, and that's this one, the fly agaric or the amanita? And when you look into it, you find out that it's very rare that anyone could ever pass away from eating one. If you ate a bunch of them, you might get sick. They're not made to eat a bunch of them. You don't go take a whole bottle of aspirin. It'll kill you. One aspirin will take away your headache. All right, well, because we do not know, because they've taken away all this information, this ancient medicine knowledge from us. And we have to go to the elite to get whatever we need for health or whatever, and they're just lying and just wiping. The ignorant go there, and they're just dying. But if you keep looking into it, they'll eventually tell you the truth somewhere. Here we got the U.S. Forest Service telling us the truth about these mushrooms. They are not poisonous. They are medicine. And it is the only, as far as I know, the only family of mushrooms that are poisonous. And like I said, even if you did take a little on your tongue or something like that, it probably wouldn't kill you. They're just not explaining this very well. So, listen to what they say about this. They tell the truth here. Fly agaric. By the way, it's in the movies like Alice in Wonderland because they're trying to tell you the truth, but only the wise will grasp and get the mystery or interpret the mystery. This is a big game. It's a maze, and you got to find the truth through all of the confusion and the lies. It's like, if you can do that, you get to be the head of your class and be the first fruits among many brethren and find God and awaken. So here it says, fly agaric. In the old world, the psychoactive fly agaric mushroom, Amanita muscaria, has been closely associated with Northern European and Asiatic shamans and their rituals. Researchers have documented its use or presumed use by numerous cultures throughout Europe and Asia. In Siberia, its use predates the crossing of the Bering Straits into North America. Oh, well, they brought this knowledge with them then. Look at this. Beautiful mushroom. Fly agaric mushroom. Fly agaric mushroom, Amanita muscaria, shown here from button shape through full maturity. Photo credited, whatever. During the Pleistocene, the use of fly agaric entered Alaska, spread out across North America, and eventually south into Mesoamerica. However, the use of the fly agaric mushroom fell by the wayside in the New World due to the availability of liberty cap mushrooms, or psilocybe. Liberty caps became the preferred psychoactive fungi as they were more easily tolerated and produced more intense experiences. Fly agaric's influence on modern midwinter and Christmas celebrations. Why does Santa wear a red coat and pants trimmed with white fur and black boots? Why does Santa come down the chimney and into the house to deliver his gifts? Why do reindeer pull Santa's sleigh? Why does Santa carry his gifts in a sack? Why does Santa have such rosy cheeks? There is a saying that behind every myth lies a wee bit of truth. The answer to these questions may be found in pre-Christian rituals practiced in Northern Europe at the time of the winter solstice. The collection, remember, that whole temple complex was oriented to the seasons. So, the Northern European at the time of the winter solstice, the collection, preparation, and use of fly agaric mushrooms were central to many Northern European and Asian people's winter solstice celebrations and ceremonies. Remember we were reading on that sign yesterday? And they were saying that it had something to do with their ceremonies. And we may never know what those ceremonies were, but it had to do with the changing of the seasons or the solstices and the equinoxes, friends. In the days leading up to the winter solstice, the fly agaric mushroom appears under trees, mostly firs and spruces. Isn't that where we found that one we just found? The fly agaric mushroom's cap is dark red to reddish orange with creamy white small patches dotting the cap in an irregular pattern. In Central Asia, shamans wore special garments to collect the fly agaric mushrooms. Their coats and pants were red with collar and cuffs trimmed with white fur and topped off with black boots. See, they wore the Santa Claus costume. They were priests, shamans, and they wore the Santa Claus outfit. Their coats and pants were red. The shaman collected the fly agaric mushroom in a special sack. After collecting the mushrooms, the shaman would return to his village and enter the yurt, a portable tent dwelling, like the teepee, like the Native Americans would smoke peyote in the, in the teepee, and there would be a hole at the top where the smoke could go out. A yurt and a teepee is really basically the same type of thing. Through the smoke hole on the roof, does this sound familiar? Sure does to me. During the ceremonial ritual, the shaman would consume and share the sacred mushrooms with the participants. The smoke hole was a gateway or portal, just like the North Pole is a portal, friends. Just like your cranium is where your spirit's going to leave the body and go unto the angels and see other worlds. The smoke hole was a gateway or portal into the spiritual world where the people would experience many visions. Remember, the early Christians had many visions. Remember, they sat in an upper room? Among the Sami, Laplander peoples, the hallucinations associated with ingestion of fly agaric gave the sensation of flying in a spiritual sleigh, pulled by reindeer or horses. Santa in his sleigh journeying out into the night to give gifts. Look at that. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. There's the reindeer that eat the fly agaric mushrooms. There's the spiritual flying, the chimney going down the chimney, and the teepee, and the priest with the red garb. By the way, notice in that picture that Santa's going down the chimney. He's going down to give gifts. But in the background, there's another interesting thing. There's a building that's got lights on. And there's this steeple. And then there's the moon in the background. This is all symbolic. You see, you probably heard that the steeple has to do with the male phallic symbol. The phallus symbol is down in your sexual area. And that would be something to do with how you would, some have said it may be like an antenna, like modern day Wi-Fi or whatever. Well, it's on the top of a building, which is a temple, and that would be the top of the head, wouldn't it? Are they saying it's a little bit like that church, that your house or your body, either one, if it's your house, then your whole house is going to get sort of gifts from the teachings of the priesthood. But if it's talking on the, microcosm level or this human body, then you're going to receive the spiritual gifts. Remember, the Bible calls them gifts. By going to the upper room, because Santa's coming down the chimney with all the gifts. And then he's going to maybe take you for a ride on his sleigh up into the heavens. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's all there. Of course, they didn't draw it exactly like we see it today sometimes. Now, take a look at this. That was the earliest picture that we had of little elves, right? They were gathering these little mushrooms. There's a whole much more we're going to find out here. It's going to blow your mind. Hold on. A side effect from eating fly agaric mushrooms was a rosy red flush to the cheeks and face. Common winter rituals included drying and stringing fly agaric mushrooms near the hearth. To this day, many peoples all over the world still decorate the family hearth and Christmas tree with strings of popcorn, cranberries, and mushroom ornaments. Mushroom ornaments. You know how you hang these ornaments on the tree? Well, originally they hung mushrooms to dry. It is a reminder that many winter solstice traditions have long forgotten histories brought forward into modern secular festivals, including Christmas holiday. Look at that. I guess that's an angel. There's some horseshoes there. I don't know if that's good luck or it has to do with the reindeer having horseshoes on them. But notice what she's hanging from the door. She's hanging a fly agaric mushroom. And there's a whole basket of mushrooms there. They hang them up to dry over the hearth. And here are the pictures of these ornaments that originally, remember today we just think they're different colors, but originally they were the shape of these mushrooms. Isn't that interesting, friends? Well, I think it is. So I want to stop here for a second and just talk about something else that's on my mind. I know there are a lot of people that watch my videos from time to time that also watch videos about astrology, but I believe you're misunderstanding a great deal of all of this ancient information, New Age type information. I know there are a lot of ex-witnesses, ex-Mormons, or present Mormons, I don't know, or ex-Adventists, or ex-sacred names, and a lot of New Age type individuals that are watching my videos. And I think some of you who believe the earth is flat watch my videos. I always talk about Santos Bachi because I know that he can handle it. I'm not trying to humiliate him, and I do not want to have a big argument with him. I would like, as a friend, I would like it if he would acknowledge that I am talking about him and that we could get together and man to man, human to human, consider these important points, because I know a lot of people are listening to that type of information. He's kind of a guru of sorts for a lot of flat earthers and this type of information. So, if we were going to just do a video on the flat earth or something like that, I could never persuade anyone, because science has got all kinds of reasons why they believe the earth is a globe. And there really has never been a science that says the earth is flat. I mean, contrary to what Santos Bachi is saying, and people keep spouting, there has never been a religion, a holy book, or any group of teachings. Well, modern people write books on this, but ancient historians and philosophers, no one ever believed the earth was flat. The Catholic Church didn't believe it was flat, contrary to what people are told. They believed it was a globe. Copernicus, and all these people, Ptolemy, they all believed the earth was a globe. Pythagoras, who got the ancient wisdom from the pharaohs and from the Persians and from the Hindus, he believed that the globes, or he called them spheres. So, but I couldn't persuade anyone, because you're convinced that water is always going to go to its level. And therefore, because you get a glass of water and it always goes level, or a pool of water, a lake, everything's going to be level. But that's not good logic, because we know that rocks fall, leaves fall from the trees, snow comes down from the sky, things fall down. It's some sort of occurrence that makes things go towards the ground. Now, if the earth was a sphere, then everything would be going towards the center. There would be a force. We call it gravity, and a lot of you don't want to believe in that. For whatever your explanation for gravity, there is such a thing as being pulled towards the center. If it's flat, we'd all be going down to the ground. If things are being pulled towards the ground, and if the ground was a sphere, then you would have to confess that it would be going not towards the ground, but towards the center of the globe. And therefore, there would be a pressure all the way around the sphere, pushing and conforming whatever the solid mass is, you call Earth. The gravity would be pushing it and forming it into a circular object, because the force would be all around the circumference, pushing towards the center, and it would make a ball. You see that happen when you see raindrops falling from the sky. They're floating, or they're suspended in space, and as they fall, they form a sphere. We see this in nature and other places, droplets of water. You see when a pebble falls into the water, it creates wavelengths of going around out in a sphere. Now, if you did that in outer void, outer space, you would have the ripples going out in all directions. It would cause a sphere. Radiation, and as we've shown, and anyone who has any real knowledge or intelligence scientifically would know, that the world really is not physical. It is radiation. This has been proven, whether you want to believe it or not, Santos. It has been proven that there is no physicality to the universe. We are divine beings manifesting, imaging everything around us. Now, I'm saying this because you're so certain that the earth is flat. Every day you're posting little articles about it, and you're really obsessed with this, and you're actually wrong. If you were wrong, then you're stifling your spiritual progress, because you don't understand that this information about the earth being a sphere or a hologram or a consciousness is actually stifling your growth to learn about how we need to get out of this consciousness. Not that we need to understand it's a flat surface and somehow or another we can be materialists and explore the outer limits of the infinite plane and go on and on and on, and we're entrapped in this infinite materiality and we'll never get out because you think that the earth is flat. However, if you understand that we're going from consciousness, from glory into glory, as is done by the Lord, as it says in 1 Corinthians, that we're going to come into the world like a classroom, and it would be like a tutor, a teacher, that would lead us to Christ, and that we would awaken with this higher consciousness and go from one classroom to another, from one glory unto the other. And the resurrection to life would be, one would be the glory of the moon, one would be the glory of the sun, and then there's the glory of the stars, and every star differs in glory. And therefore it's an infinite progression. How would we then go from one reality to another? On a spaceship? A tin can propelled by rocket fuel? No. If you don't understand, you flat earthers, if you don't understand the concept of the wormhole at the North Pole and the other wormhole at the South Pole, and that creates a consciousness where we manifest our existence around us like a bubble, and the only way out of here is the only way to get into this world is through birth. So the ancient science says we're living in a house, and we enter in through the top of the head, and we come out into this material world by being born from our mother's womb. And when we go unto the higher realms, we go out through the head in higher consciousness. And they use certain medications and herbs to facilitate this. It is in the Bible, the anointing on the top of the head with the cannabis, and the going into the tent of meeting, and where they burn the incense on the altar. The priest had to go in, and he saw God while smoking this incense. It's exactly the same tent. It's the same principle. It's the same thing that the Native Americans were doing in their teepees, or the Native Europeans were doing in their yurts, or whatever they call those things. If we're going to understand what they were doing in those temples, orienting those temples to the stars, and their incense and their herbs, if we're going to understand higher consciousness, then we're going to have to understand this information and not get off on some belief, some, demanding that the only way we can truly be spiritual and smart and, if you're going to be my friend, you've got to believe the earth is flat. That's now become some kind of religion. However, these ideas are really only a lure to mesmerize and deceive one's mind to get off the path to higher consciousness and truth, and to find the real meaning of these mysteries by concentrating on some fact or non-fact, whatever it is, some material idea that we cannot prove. From our standpoint on the earth, we cannot, from where we stand, prove whether the earth is flat or not, because we're not able to fly above the earth to see what the shape of it really is. And we can't trust science, and we can't trust NASA. But maybe we could trust the ancient esoteric wisdom, which is in every nation on the face of the earth, which tells us that with the help of these herbs, we can gain higher consciousness and go to other realms. That Santa Claus wants to go to the North Pole for a reason, to help us understand that this temple's got a steeple. We've got to go through the top of the cranium to go into the higher realms to speak to the angels. You don't want to go into the material realm and start, squabbling over stupid little ideas of scientific insignificance, because all you're going to find there is arguments and a bunch of people standing around arguing over how many angels could fit on the head of a pin. It doesn't matter, because you don't even understand what angels are. They don't take up time or space. They live in a realm that has nothing to do with this material place. It's another dimension, a higher dimension, a different classroom. And you don't get there by walking over the ice wall across the, Antarctic, and find somehow or another there's another realm where the angels are living on an island in the sea, and the earth is literally an infinite plane. That is only kind of an illustration. Even if you found that somewhere in some book, some ancient book, it would be more of an illustration. But there's plenty of illustrations and parables, even by Jesus, that teach us that this exodus that we're going to perform is going to be by the help of the angels, our higher messengers that appear before the face of our Father who is in heaven, which is high, which is spirit, which is mind, and it is love. And that is where we must be focusing our discussions and our concentration, because this video will prove, and if somebody shows you this video and tells you to watch it, and you decide to go ahead and watch this, listen, friend, I love you, brother. I really do. And I think you're brilliant. But I need you to get on the same page, because there's lots of people out there that are seeking this information. And we don't want them to be confused by someone over here, a good, amazing brother in the Lord, who's really, you're teaching a lot of people things. And it's kind of counterproductive if you're steering them off into this materialistic world of arguing about whether the earth is flat. Because we need to get on the same page so that we can help people understand what the real truth is. And we need to understand that we're going to another realm altogether, in another dimension, in a higher plane. And I know you'll say, oh, I agree with all of that, but the earth is flat, Dave. But if you understand all of this stuff that we've just discussed in this video today about Santa Claus, I know you talk a lot about Santa Claus. Take into consideration, Santos, what I've said in this video, and all the other videos that we've talked about, all the other things we've talked about, and mull it around and think about whether or not the true teaching really is that we live on a plane, or whether the true teaching is that we are going to heaven in a world where we do not die and we live forever with the angels. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. But don't forget that we're going to be doing some amazing videos. It's really not a good time to miss any of these videos that we are going to be doing, because we're going to be talking about crystals and higher consciousness and all these amazing things, the true teachings, so that we can find peace and well-being and happiness and love. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.